One of the most common surgical procedures in the Ukrainian military hospitals on and behind the front lines right now is the amputation. According to the Wall Street Journal, amputations are necessary in about 10% of major injuries. The cutting off of limbs is a drastic measure that doctors only undertake if the wound or damage to a certain body part is so severe that the safest way to save the patient is to remove it. Now, apart from shrapnel, the most common cause of this kind of injury is mines. And this brings us to this week's topic. In 2023, Ukraine became the world's most mined country, with a contaminated area of at least 170,000 square kilometers. Please be aware that this statistic, due to the dynamic situation, is only an estimate. The real number, for one, changes all the time, and probably it is a lot larger, since in most conflicts only a fraction of the actual mined territory is registered. Most mines go unnoticed until someone steps on it, and then, sadly, it's already too late. What is a mine? Its deceitful nature, the surprise element, that is the underlying idea of a mine. A mine, and this is in very simple terms, as there are many different types, is an explosive weapon whose charge is detonated by a fuse. Mines are laid singly or as minefields in terrain, so landmines, or in water against ships and submarines. There are also limpet mines that are attached to ships or land vehicles and then detonated from a distance. Also, unexploded shells or rockets and missiles can have a similar effect, so that's an additional danger. A mine is essentially a booby trap, usually triggered by pressure, but in some cases also by tripwires, electronic sensors, or remote detonation. When laying mines, it is common to mix different types of mines so that, for example, mine-clearing tanks cannot safely drive into a field of anti-personnel mines, and in turn, human deminers cannot safely defuse anti-tank mines. Why do you lay mines? The main purpose of mines is for defense, or at least containment. Let's take a look at the ongoing counteroffensive in Ukraine. Russia is using every trick in the book to defend its occupied territories. While the main roads are a much too obvious attack route, it's apparent that Ukraine has to try to cross the vast open fields. Russia has in return mined a majority of these fields to stop any advance over the open space. The US Marines Field Manual defines 4 types of minefields. Protective minefields, employed to protect locations, soldiers, equipment, supplies, and facilities from enemy attacks. Tactical minefields, designed to influence an enemy's ability to maneuver and direct it into an area chosen by the defender to maximize his advantages. Nuisance minefields, intended to cause confusion amongst the enemy by disrupting, delaying, weakening, or destroying attacking and reserve forces. Phony minefields, by either camouflaging the location of real minefields, causing the enemy to be fearful of mines or waste time and resources dealing with them. This can be especially valuable if the enemy is already mine sensitive. Regardless of the type and how, laying mines is sadly very effective. Whether in Ukraine or any other country suffering from armed conflict, mines especially pose a long-term threat to civilians, since most will remain hidden even long after the end of the active conflict. The most common anti-personnel mines deployed by Russia are the PFM-1, known otherwise as a butterfly mine. It weighs less than 40 grams and will typically not kill you, but cause nasty injuries. The POM-3 anti-personnel mine, another common Russian crime, does not need to be touched to detonate. It can be scattered by aircraft, rockets, or artillery, using a small parachute to land gently. It's around the size and shape of a can of Coke, and upon landing it inserts a small spike into the earth. When this spike detects some sort of vibration, like footsteps, it launches the main mine into the air, where the 100-gram explosive payload detonates, spraying deadly metal shrapnel. Russia has also deployed various anti-tank mines in Ukraine, for example the PTM-1, whose elongated plastic casings contain more than 1 kilogram of plastic explosive. PTM-1s can be dropped from helicopters or scattered by submunition warheads. If a tank or another heavy vehicle drives over it, the 1.5 kilogram mine explodes, and in most cases, the chain is destroyed. This poses a high threat even to modern Western main battle tanks. The immobilized tanks then become an easy target. Russia has also deployed more modern mines like the PTKM-1R. These spring or jump mines, which resemble a camping stove, are a particularly treacherous weapon because the tank does not have to roll over it for it to explode. It is supposed to be able to detect whether a tank, truck, or car is approaching, based on ground vibrations and acoustic patterns. In case of a tank, an explosive charge is fired, attacking the tank from above at its most vulnerable point. Demining. So, to advance and reconquer occupied territory, Ukrainian soldiers are faced with the humongous task of demining at least enough territory to create pathways for them to advance and attack. Often, during the counteroffensive, soldiers have to demine manually. Deminers, also called sappers, wade into minefields on foot and then clear a patch. As you can imagine, clearing mines under incoming enemy fire is especially difficult. Also, this method is not very effective if you want to clean areas or pathways large enough for tanks or infantry fighting vehicles. Therefore, both sides resort to so-called mine-clearing tanks for this purpose. These can basically cut a path in the battlefield through which attacking armored vehicles can advance. Tanks can also be fitted with chains that rotate and beat through minefields. Even more sophisticated and effective is the M58 mine-clearing line charge, a rocket-projected mine-clearing system which the USA has already supplied to Ukraine. The basic idea is the same as the Soviet-era UR-77, which is used by both sides in this war. The tracked UR-77, nicknamed Meteorite, dates back to the 1970s and uses the so-called pyrotechnic broaching method. To do this, the UR-77 uses a rocket to fire two arm-thick detonating cords from the turret. They touch the ground and the explosives in the string detonate. The blast wave is designed to detonate mines near the strings, creating a mine-free alley up to 19 meters long and 6 meters wide. However, the older Soviet systems don't work on more modern mines because the small explosives in the cords do not detonate them. So, to be successful, Ukraine will have to rely on more modern systems like the M58. Other options include drones and robots, unmanned aerial or ground-based vehicles that do a job that would otherwise put a human being at risk. Slovakia has provided Ukraine with a similar but smaller system called Bozena 5, which is an unmanned, remote-controlled 12-ton crawler that also rotates heavy metal parts. In any case, the demining of Ukraine's territory will take dozens, if not hundreds of years, endangering many more generations to come. This is the sad and true price of this war, and the more support Ukraine can get, either through modern demining equipment or foreign experts who are willing to participate and help, the better. That's all for this week. Thank you for watching Talking Tactics. Hit like and subscribe, and see you next week.